Hey guys, this week I'm talking about Chapter 11 in Theories of Human Communication. This week was on culture and how culture affects communication theory. I'm going to talk about two different aspects of the reading that really interested me and I could expand upon further with different kind of examples. The first one is cultural hermeneutics. And this means studying a group of people and trying to understand how they assign meanings to different aspects of their life. So what are the symbols and the ways they communicate? And we'll go into more depth into the 5 different steps you use to look at people like an ethnographer. For example, let's take high school girls. We look at how they assign meaning to certain brands and what they find popular. They assign social capital to people of different ranks within their school and within different social groups. And we also see certain foods they might give more meaning to, like Starbucks or Chipotle, as opposed to Moe's and Dunkin' Donuts. And then through further research, we might be able to prove that they assign meaning to these things because of either corporate advertising, social media influencers, or people that they know with high social capital. People that study cultural hermeneutics, like I said earlier, are called ethnographers. Ethnographers, usually they would go into studying cultural hermeneutics in 5 different ways. So first, they try to find forms of communication used by the group. Then they try to find the meanings of communication practices have for the group. And then they try to find when and where the group members use these practices. And then they try to figure out how communication practices create a sense of community. And finally, they'll look at the variety of codes being used by the group. So we can take the example we used earlier of the high school girls and use those 5 different steps and sort of act like an ethnographer in studying this human community. You take the perspective of the ethnographer and look at communication. So along with conversation, the teens use texting on their cell phones, laptops, and iPads. And they also send Instagram direct messages, photo Snapchats, and they can tag each other in photos as well. And they occasionally FaceTime or Instagram message or send phone calls. So those are the different modes of communication that they're using. And they assign different meanings to the different kinds of communication as well. A Snapchat is seen as a more casual form of communication as opposed to a text message. A call or FaceTime is more urgent, and FaceTimes tend to be shared with groups that have established friendships. And the group members can communicate within the campus of the high school verbally. And this usually happens during the hours after school on the weekdays and then a full day during the weekend. And they communicate through message in the after school hours and usually through conversation during school hours. The communication practices create a sense of community within the schools because the groups of communicators grow friendships. These can turn into things that we call cliques. The groups also have visible lists of friends and public tagged photos that show friendships online and display loyalty. And group chat capabilities also allow online communities to have conversations through text or Instagram direct message. And that's how they identify who is within the group and who is without the group. And there are a variety of codes used by high school girls that we can assume have different meanings. And for example, they use emojis a lot in text, which can serve as a visual cue to different emotions or reactions they might be having. And they also use slang words that have different meanings to them. I give an example of the word swag. This can often mean different things, different items, things that they find interesting, items they received. So it takes on different meaning depending which group of high school girls you're looking at. And then another interesting aspect of the reading was postmodernism. This is a term that I was familiar with through my studies in art history in my undergrad. And I think looking at it in a different context sort of expanded on what I thought of it originally from just an art history perspective into a more worldwide perspective. Basically, postmodernism is trying to identify more oppressive social structures that limit people's ability to live freely and do what they truly want. And it also emphasizes the fact that there are social structures in place that are created by us, and they're always in flux. So these necessarily aren't realities, but they're perceived realities. And what I had thought about it before was postmodernist art and how it counteracted with the modernist movement. Basically, the way people did art, or how they thought about art, was usually exclusively just visual 2D or 3D sculpture, and it was they created something on a canvas and then people looked at it. That was the modernist structure of how art was supposed to behave. Then postmodernist art took that and said, we don't have to define how art is supposed to behave. We're the ones that define that. Let's let the art define itself. So we see different mediums coming out, like video, performance art, installation art. So different ways that they're using art to define a meaning instead of limiting the art into what it can do. So I think this, in the same way, communication theory that's postmodernist goes against the realities of social life that are previously established and sees them more as perceptions that we've created in order to limit the amount of uncertainty that we have. So they aren't necessarily something that's in place. For example, postmodern feminism. It says that the idea that women are subordinate to men is something that we've created. And it's not necessarily the reality or a truth. It's something that we've put in place because we didn't know how to deal with gender differences. Overall, I thought this week was really interesting, and I enjoyed how they related the studies to a lot of different fields of study, such as anthropology, sociology, and even art history. So I look forward to talking to you guys next week. Hope you enjoyed this little breakdown. See ya!